Now, let's shift our attention to one of the absolute most successful and most important guard passes in the Jiu-Jitsu curriculum, the Toreando pass or bullfighting pass. The idea, as the name implies, is to move aside your opponent's legs. Okay, the idea of a bullfighter is he stands in front of a powerful opponent, the bull, and he waves a red flag and then moves out of the way so that the power of the bull dissipates past him. Same thing here. When I stand in front of an opponent, the strongest part of my opponent's body is, of course, his legs. Okay, so like a bullfighter, I stand in front of my opponent. If I try to fight the legs and I come onto the soles of his feet, that's when he's at his most powerful. If he pushes with his 2 feet in these situations, that's where I get overwhelmed. But if I have an opponent who pushes with his 2 feet and I step out of the way, then, like a bullfighter, you've sent the legs by. That's the basic idea behind the move. Now, if that's the basic idea, we need to go beyond that and start looking, okay, what are the precise ideas behind this move? Let's start off with a division in the bullfighting world, okay? The basic division is between those people who favor gripping the gi pants, okay? That's one great option. And those who prefer gripping the ankles or shins or what have you, as though you're in a no-gi context. It's my belief that in order for you to call yourself a master of the Toreando pass, you must become highly competent in both, using both the gi pants and gripping your opponent's actual ankles and shins. I'm going to say that even in a situation where we're working with a gi, I often favor just gripping the ankles. Okay. Normally, when someone wears a gi, the idea is to use the gi as much as possible. Okay, so if I'm going to strangle someone and they're wearing a jacket, of course I'm going to use the collars to strangle rather than a rear naked strangle. It's just far more efficient. But this is one of the few cases where the no-gi grips often prove in some ways, not always, but in some ways superior to the gi grips. So the basic juxtaposition is, will I come out and control the ankles, or will I come out and control the gi pants? Okay. I'm going to show you both methods. They're both highly effective. Let's make a division between my opponent's 2 legs and my 2 arms, because this is essentially a battle between my arms, his legs, and my body positioning. That's really what the whole Toreando game is built around. When we go to work in this position, I want to move my opponent's legs in 2 different directions. First thing I need is some sense of angle. If I'm directly in front of my opponent, it's very hard for me just to turn my opponent's body. Okay? It can be done, but it's not an easy thing to do. As a general rule, what I want to do is I want to stand outside of the line of my training partner's legs, okay, and get to an angle. Once we get to an angle on our opponent, I want to exert a pushing force on one of my opponent's knees away from me. Make strong legs maintains. I just push like so. Then I want to create a pushing force in this direction on the opposite leg, okay? So in other words, I push along the hip line on the far leg, and I push along the center line on the near leg. That's the basic force direction for any Toreando pass, okay? So the idea is I have an opponent has 2 legs. Once I get to an angle, the far leg is pushed in line with the hips, this way. And the near leg is pushed in line with the center line, this way, okay? I don't want to just push 2 legs along the hip line. I don't want to push 2 legs along the center line. That's not really realistic, okay? So we push the far one across, and then we send the second leg through, okay? That's the basic idea there. So when we first come out towards our training partner, everything gets measured, as always, by the toe line. If I go beyond the toe line, my opponent hooks into my legs, it's going to be impossible to Toreando now because he's formed a connection to my legs, okay? The other thing I want to avoid is my opponent forming a good connection to my arms. If I get grips on my opponent, he puts feet on my biceps, and then starts coming over the top. Now it's going to be very hard to Toreando, okay? He's made a connection to my arms. So the 2 things I'm actively looking to avoid right from the start are connections to my arms with spider guard or lasso guards, and connections to my legs with either inside control or outside control. These are going to complicate things and make it difficult. What I am looking for is a situation where my hands have connection to his here. He can grab my sleeve cuffs, that's fine, I don't mind that, but I can't let his feet connect to my body. Okay, that's the problem. When the feet connect either to my arms or to my legs, that's when Toreando passing becomes very, very problematic. Okay, so my goal is to form a situation where I connect to my opponent's legs either through the gi pants or through his ankles, but I do not let his legs connect with me. I don't care about his hands connecting to me. I care about his legs connecting. So the whole idea to set up a toreando is for me to get control of his legs, but to deny his legs, in particular the feet, connection to me. So I connect to his feet, but I don't let him connect to my arms or to my legs. If I can do this, then you can get an immediate good start and start passing your opponent's guard on many, many occasions. Okay, so that's the preamble to toreando passing. Now, this is where the whole debate over should I grab the legs or should I grab the gi pants starts to come in. When you go to grab gi pants, there's a lot of play in the pants. The cloth moves. So it's quite easy for your opponent to come forward and start pommeling his legs into connection to my arms or to my legs. Okay? The same is not true when I grab a hold of my training partner's ankles here. Now when he goes to pommel his feet, it's just not the same. Okay? This is one of the main reasons why I often favor gripping the ankles over gripping the gi pants. The gi pants have slack and give, which can be exploited by a skilled opponent to make connections. And now it's going to be significantly more difficult for me to employ toreando passing. Okay? So one of my opening gambits, which I often favor, is rather than go straight to the pants, which gives him connection to my arms and allows him to grip my sleeve cuffs and access my hands, is for me to access the ankles. Now when he goes to grab my sleeve cuffs, it's significantly more difficult for him. And when he goes to hook into my arms and legs, that too is more difficult for him. Okay? So I'm actually a big proponent of grabbing the ankles even when my opponent's wearing a gi as a first contact on my opponent. As I said, I'll show you other methods too, but this is one of my favorite things to do. Okay? Whenever we grab ankles, my second responsibility is to divert my training partner's feet. Okay? A very good rule of thumb is this. Whenever I first go out to make contact with my opponent, my first concern is to make my opponent's feet point away from me. If Mateus's feet, the soles of his feet, point directly at the front of my body, nothing good ever comes out of this from my perspective. This is good for him and it's terrible for me. The moment his feet start pointing at me, he can make contact with my body and cause all the problems associated with open guard. Okay? So my first gambit when I first come out towards someone is make his feet point away from you. Okay? So as I come out towards my training partner, that's always my first gambit. Make the feet point somewhere else. Okay? I will never tolerate an opponent's feet pointing directly at me. Nothing good comes out of this situation. Okay? All of his main attacks from here come out of feet pointing directly at you. Look how easily Mateus can support my whole body weight and move me around. He pushes on me. It's a disaster here. Okay? I'm fighting his legs now. Okay? And all of that comes out of the fact that those soles of his feet are pointing at me. So my whole thing is immediately, right off the bat, get his feet pointing away. Okay? And from situations like this, now he's defensive and I'm offensive. Okay? And we can work from situations like this. So the basic choice we have is this idea of should I connect at the gi pants or should I connect at the ankles? So my point is when we connect at the ankles, you have the advantage that it's much harder for your opponent to connect to my arms or legs, and I can quickly get his feet pointing away from me. That's why I like that approach. I'll come back to that later. Now, you might be saying, okay, what about gi pants? I see a lot of champions gripping at the gi pants. There's a reason why, because it's a damn good grip. I said there's some disadvantages to it. It does mean that my opponent can now access my sleeve cuffs. That's not good. It does mean that now there's more of a chance my opponent can get in and access my arms and my legs. That's not good. But still, there's some advantages. When you grab the gi pants, it's a more robust grip. When I grab ankles, it's more of a throwing grip, where I throw the legs by and then I release them. Okay? So you grab for just a short period of time and you throw the legs and work. But when you grab gi pants, you can really pin legs and pin them down to the floor. It's a more robust grip. When your opponent goes to pull the hands off, it's not an easy thing. It's a pretty strong grip. Okay? You also have more versatility with the grips. You could grip the inside of the knees. You can grip the outside of the shins. You can grip the top of the shins with 4-finger grips. You can come all the way down to the bottom of the pants. You can come all the way up to the knees. So it is a stronger and a more versatile grip. It gives you more gripping options. Okay, so that's a good thing when you're working with gi pants. It also means that you get a better ability to turn an opponent at the body. When I grab the ankles, I tend to only move the ankles, but the body doesn't move. Okay, when I grab gi pants, big strong body here, you can actually start physically turning people. I push the far leg away, and as a result, we get a good turn that moves the entire body. Okay, so if I make a quick move here, I've turned the entire body. That's a good thing. You've got a more radical angle on your opponent. Okay, so those are the basic pros and cons of working with either the gi pants or the ankles. There's good and bad to both, and I want you guys to work both into your game. Okay. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to start with the classical method of gripping the gi pants. Okay, I think that's where most people associate with toreando passing, so I'm going to start there. When we come out towards our training partner, and I go through and I make my initial grips, I want to come over the top and go straight through and just put my hands on his shins, okay? To make a fast grip, I don't fiddle with my fingers. He just pulls his legs and the grips are gone, okay? What I want to do is I want to put the flat of my hands on my training partner's shins. Bang, bang, and then pull to get cloth. Don't go for the cloth first, go for the body first and the cloth second. So as I come out, I just go, and there's the grip, okay? If I just go for cloth, move your legs around like this, it's weird, hard to get to the cloth, okay? So I come out, bang, I grab the body, and then the cloth. So I come out, and there's my grips, okay? From this position, I almost always start with a push. Now, a word to the wise guys, if you're drilling this with your training partner, if your training partner has soft, relaxed legs and there's no tension in his body, when you go to turn the guy, nothing's going to happen because he just kind of flops around. Realistically, in a real situation, your opponent has to have his knees tight to his chest and his body curled up, okay? Because if his legs are soft and weak, I just push his feet down to the ground and just walk around his legs, okay? So realistically, he's got to keep his knees to his chest and provide tension. That's how you should drill the move with each other. So Mateus is actively pulling his knees to his chest so that when I start to move to an angle and I push this leg across, look how I get a turning effect on my training partner, okay? Where I push the far leg over, and as a result, we turn the man out, and we're in a position now where we have the feet pointing away, and we're in the perfect position to go on the attack, okay? Please understand the difference in directionality of force of my two arms. As I said earlier, I want to push the far knee along the line of the hip. And I want to push the near knee along the line of the center line. And between those two things, that will open up space between my opponent's elbow and knee. Elbows and knees together, Mateus. His goal to protect himself from guard passes is to keep the integrity of elbow and knee. Okay? My goal is to open the knee and the elbow apart so that I've got space to lower my body and pass my opponent's guard. If there's no space, there's nowhere for me to pin. So I have to separate here in order to pin. That's my goal, okay? The bad news is it's damn hard to separate someone's elbows and knees. That's a very strong frame and body position. Make a strong body, Mateus. His frames can easily hold 100% of my body weight, okay, without a problem. Okay, it's a very, very strong form of frame. So what are we going to do to separate those damn elbows and knees? That's where directionality of force becomes important. I want his knees pushing away from me, and then this one here pushing down the body. Okay, so with all that in mind, let's move out towards our training partner, working here from the toe line. I go forward and I take my grips in. Anytime I grip his gi pants, he's almost certainly going to go in and grip your cuffs. That's okay, that's fine. What I don't mind if he grabs my cuffs with his hands. What I care about is what his feet are doing. That's the problem. If they go into my biceps, that's bad. If they go into my legs, either inside or outside, that's bad. Okay? I'll let him grab my cuffs with his hands, no problem. But his feet, that's an issue. Okay? So the minute we come in with our training partner, I make my contact. My first thing is to make sure his feet are not pointing at me. Because to hook into my legs or to hook into my biceps, his feet have to point at me. So my first thing is to get an angle on my training partner and make the feet point away. Okay? Now when Mateus tries to come in, I push the knee to the mat. That's my goal. The beauty of gripping the gi pants, strong body, Matthias, is I can physically push the knee down to the mat. It's a robust grip. When he tries to pull my hand off, it's damn difficult, especially when you put weight down on your training partner's knee. Now let's check out something about the human body. Strong body, Matthias. I don't care how flexible your opponent is. If you push one knee towards the mat, the other knee will always move in accordance with it. Okay? Again, if I push my opponent's right knee towards the mat, his left knee will always follow and move towards the center line. So here, he has his feet in front of me. If I push here, the other knee gets cleared out of my way. Okay? That's why this grip here, I move to an angle on one side. This grip is so important because by pushing this far knee away, I clear the near knee as well. Now he has 2 feet on one side of my body. And that's a good thing for me and a terrible thing for him. Remember that in most forms of open guard, my opponent must have a foot on each side of his center line to be effective. Okay, that's where he's effective. If I ever take 2 feet to one side of his center line, his guard is now neutralized and ineffective. He will have to recover from this position and put me back with the foot on each side of the center line. So, as we come out with our training partner, I come out and I put hands on, gi pant grips. Okay? I step to an angle, and from here, we find ourselves in a good attacking position. I focus on pushing the far knee down to the mat. When Matthias tries to put me back in guard, it's incredibly difficult as long as I control the far knee. If I don't control the far knee, he can easily turn and recover guard. Okay? So our whole thing, make his feet point away, get to your angle, and make his far knee touch the mat whenever you can. So, first establishing grips, and then pushing the far knee away. Okay? Once we get the far knee away, we're going to enter with the knee. His elbow and knee are close together on the near side. It's hard for me to finish from here. So I take my knee and I put it right here at the hip. Okay? As I move around the corner, Matthias got to put me back in guard. It's a difficult thing. Now he's got to take his hand and frame on my body and hold me off. Okay? That's where we control that far knee. He goes to put me back in guard. As long as you control the far knee, it's difficult. Now I push the knee in the direction we talked about earlier. And then from here, we just slide down, knees on the floor, and end up in perfect position to cover our opponent. Okay? From here, there's probably going to be a vociferous fight for position here. I just landed chest to chest. He's going to be trying to put you back in guard, etc., etc. And the onus is on us now to get the head down, control our opponent, and walk our way up to the head and control the head. Now, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. One of the great weaknesses, Toreando passing is an incredibly effective method of passing, but it does have a central weakness. The weakness of Toreando passing is the transition from here to your opponent's head. It's a long distance to cover. Legs up defensively, buddy. So once I clear the legs out to the side, there's a big transition. So I go onto his framing, there's a big transition to the head. And I've got to get through those defensive frames. That's the traditional weakness of the Toreando passing. That's why so many people favor knee on belly positioning. Okay? Because this helps you get around those damn frames. You get a scoring position without having to fight the frames. But at some point, we've got to start turning through on the frames. He's going to be kicking and moving, etc. And there's going to be a scramble here for position. Sometimes he'll come up to his knees underneath you, and you'll have to scramble around towards the back, etc., etc. Okay, so there's a lot of action during that final set where you go from knee on belly down to the head and control the head. That shift to the head, I often refer to as the cranial shift. Okay, we get to the cranium and bolt your opponent down and finish controlling the head and shoulders. Is probably the hardest aspect of Toreando passing. Getting past the feet, if your opponent is not connected to you, is pretty easy. Bang, make the feet go aside. Getting to an angle is not that hard. Forcing the knee to the mat is not that hard. But transitioning from knee on belly down to the head on a tough, resilient opponent, that's tough work. And that's worth spending some time on later on in this video. So, once again, we start off here with our training partner. We're in front, we go through, and we catch. I can't stay with his feet facing me. There's nothing ever good ever comes out of that. I make a step to the side. As I make the step, I push with one, I pull with the other, and we create that initial angle. Now we run, and get his knee down to the mat. Okay, so there's a push across the body like so. As my opponent goes to switch now into frames and hold me off, we've got a scoring position, and then from here, we're in the position where we can start coming down towards our opponent. As he goes to hold us off from here, we go and control the legs. There's going to be a tough fight here to control the head, but at some point we get to control the head like so, or like so. Okay, now you completed the pass. The pass is always complete when you control the head and shoulders. Okay, you don't really control the guard pass until the head and shoulders are pinned. It's true for almost all cases. Let's talk a little bit more about those two distinct pushing forces, one across the hip line and one across the center line. So Mateus, line your head up with the camera so you can see what's going on here. So we come out towards our training partner, we stay outside of the toe line like so, and then from here I go over the top. There's the initial contact where I come in and lock. There's the gi pants under my control. He immediately goes in and gets my cuffs. You know what he wants next? He wants to take his feet and take the inside position. Okay, as soon as we see this going on, we're always looking to go into an initial angle on our training partner just like so. Then we're looking to push his knee down towards the mat and bring our knee inside. As our opponent goes to force us away and form frames, our whole thing is how we're going to manage the control of our opponent's head. Okay, so as he starts coming in towards us here, we can go inside a frame, outside a frame. I can bring a knee inside a frame. There's a bunch of things you can do. And then from here we settle down and go in and lock up the head. From here we end up across our training partner's side. Now, some initial thoughts. Okay, it seems pretty clear that if we can create a situation where we're controlling our training partner's gi pants and he has our cuffs but he has no connection with the feet, it's not that hard for us to form an initial angle. Okay, first problem, the problem of getting caught up in the leg. When I go to an angle, there's a danger that I will throw him into my leg. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to form an angle on our training partner, and I want to step my left leg back so that I form a right angle to my training partner. If I'm square on and I go to throw his legs, look how this leg here catches inside mine. Okay, so our thing is I sidestep and then I square up. Sidestep, square step. Sidestep, square step, and knee goes in. We push the far knee away down to the floor. He goes to frame and hold us off. And from the situation, we go inside our training partner's armpit and find ourselves in a good position to come through and finish. Okay. Second reflection. We have an opponent here in front of us. We make our initial connection. He comes in and gets, unfortunately, connection to my bicep. That's not what I wanted. Okay, now he's connected. Now it's going to be very hard for us to get an angle. So our first thing is to clear the connection. The more my elbows flare, the more control my opponent has over my body. So our whole thing is to bring the elbows back and walk and pop the feet off the bicep. So the second he makes contact, we close the elbows and walk backwards and clear. Never do I stay over his hip line when he's connected. Now I'm out of balance. He's generating kazushi and causing problems. Okay? He can make me take a step. That's a good thing for him and a terrible thing for me. Okay? So the second I come out, make contact, and he gets in quickly, we always close the elbows and walk backwards and take his feet off the floor. The second we go in, angle step, square step, turn the man, and there's the knee in position. Okay? He's got to form frames now. Goes to put me back in guard. And we settle up in good position like so. Okay? Now, next element. We'll do this one lined up this way. Okay. You got a choice in knee position. When I first come in on my training partner and lock up, and we get that angle, you could go straight knee on belly. That's a great option. But sometimes you feel the knee and the elbow are close together. It's not easy. Okay? So another great option is to bring my knee to the tailbone. and then just push the knee down to the floor. Okay? Now, with my knees on the floor, the transition to the head is much smaller. It's a little easier. When he goes to frame on me in these situations, we just bring our hand over the top and we sit through towards the hips, and we end up with a nice pass ready to go. Okay? So a different foot position. Instead of me going knee on belly position, I go here, behind the hips instead of in front of the hips. So we walk out towards our training partner, I go through, I make my initial grips, and then I go across, and I push the knee down to the floor, and I stay heavy on the hips. From here, we just turn around the corner, turn the hips, and end up in good position. Okay? Now, once we work with Toreando in this fashion, you're going to see that getting that first grip on your opponent with the gi pants can be a very, very useful way for us to operate. Everything we've done so far, we've done from outside the toe line. So my opponent was lying down, and I stayed outside the toe line. And as a result, I could dictate the gripping battle. Okay? If he reaches for his leg string from here, that's a very long reach. And that makes for a very easy set of legs to throw by and pass, etc., etc. So if Mateus is experienced, he's not going to reach past his toe line and make the basic error of overextension of the legs. Because extended legs means that his elbows and knees are no longer in a good position close together. Okay? And it's very easy for us now to take advantage of that space. From his perspective, he always wants discipline with his elbows and knees, never sacrificing the unity of his elbows and knees. Okay? So we're safe out here. But once I make contact with him, then he can start gripping my cuffs. It's okay if he just holds my cuffs with no foot contact. But when the feet come in, that's an issue. And we've seen the idea of clearing feet at all times. Okay? Now, another place to operate, instead of operating out here, is to start much closer to my opponent. Okay? And down specifically on one knee in a position like so. This is a very good starting position. It's a pretty stable position, and my foot position makes it hard for Mateus to go into regular forms of guard. For example, De La Riva guard would be quite difficult for him to do here because of my leg orientation. If my leg was up, now he's got a De La Riva hook in. But because I'm down on a knee, it's actually quite difficult for him to dig in here. If he went for reverse De La Riva, that too would be difficult because I dominate the inside of the knee. Okay? It's actually a pretty tricky thing for my opponent to work here. But it's a great position for me to fix up grips on my training partner's gi pants. Okay? Because I'm very, very close to the man. Okay? If I stand naively inside my opponent's toe, he's got all kinds of De La Riva guards here. Okay? You can go either side. De La Riva, reverse De La Riva, you can go to the spider guard, do all kinds of things. Okay? But if I rush my opponent's legs and start down here like so, it's much more difficult for him. Okay? And I fix up my grips nice and strong in this position. You've got a lot of time to do so. Okay? He can't do much to you. You're too close. You're too set in your body position, and you're very stable here. Now, I just take everything ready, just like so, bring my feet in, and then I just pop up. I use the recoil action of popping up from here to start a Toreando. And as a result, I can push his knee on the far side down to the floor when he tries to put me back in guard from here. It's a difficult thing. And then, as always, we come down, control the hips, and ultimately, to control our training partner's head. Okay? So this is often a tactic we make use of. The basic choice I have is between working beyond the toe line and reaching for the grip. That's one good method. And the other method is to take everything over to the side and work from positions like so, a knee drop position. Okay? And from here, we can take the time to fix up strong grips on our training partner. Now I push the knees in towards my training partner like so, and I use a kind of a springbok effect here, where I just take my body out to the side and send the legs on by, and now we're in good position to control the hips. Okay? So those are some excellent ways for us to work, where we use the gi pants to set up strong Toreando entries. Some of you might be saying, when you watch this, okay, that's great. I see there's some effectiveness here, and when I watch world champions perform jiu-jitsu, Toreando certainly figures very heavily in the percentage high percentage guard passes. But dude, I'm 50 years old, I'm slow, and I don't feel Toreando's my kind of pass. It's like a young man's speed pass. I'm trying to dissuade you from thinking that way. Toreandos have a value far beyond just the basic guard pass in itself. They also have a tremendous value as setting up other forms of guard pass. So even if Toreando passing is not your particular thing, even if you feel like, man, I'm just not fast enough, I'm just not active enough side to side to make it work for me in competition, you can still use Toreandos as an amazing way to enter into your other favorite guard passes. Okay, for example, once I start gripping my training partner's gi pants and getting angles on my training partner, this is a fantastic way for us to go in and capture a leg. And then from this position, we go straight in and we get right into some of our favorite guard passes. Okay, we walk up, we capture our training partner's knee, and you've seen it all before through here. Okay, we go through and we get into a great passing situation. It's a great way for me to set up an initial pull to the side, and now we find ourselves in a situation where it's relatively easy for us to go into some of our favorite passes, cross knee slides and knee cut passes, etc. It's a great way for us to go in on a training partner, get an initial angle that separates my training partner's feet, and then from here find ourselves in classic passes as we saw earlier in the video. Okay, so not only is it a fantastic method of passing in itself, it's a tremendous way to set up some of the other great passes. Whether you use Toreando passes as a pass in itself or as a setup to others, you must become familiar with it. You must make it part of your attacking arsenal. It's just too good to overlook and ignore. Okay. Now, so far, everything we've done has been working with our training partner's gi pants. But at the start of this video, I gave you a big spiel on how much I personally love the idea of using just my opponent's ankles the same way we do when we practice no gi jiu-jitsu. Okay. Even though we're actually wearing a gi here. We saw there were several advantages to this. Let's have a look at this method of passing now. Okay, we've got a skilled and knowledgeable opponent, and he's a good grip fighter. Whenever you go with a skilled grip fighter, the danger is whenever you go to grip his gi pants, he will always have access to your cuffs. And if he can get to your cuffs, he can get to spider guard, he can get to lasso guard, he can pull you forward and get ashigarami, de la riva, all kinds of things. Okay? So one of my favorite tactics is to work with no gi grips, even in the context of the gi. When we use this, understand that no gi grips tend to be used for throwing legs rather than pinning legs. When I work with the hands, you can actively pull, push, etc., etc. It's a very strong and robust grip. This grip is not strong and robust, but it prevents him from gripping you. Okay, it's used to divert legs rather than pin legs. So as I come up towards my training partner, I focus just on getting the knees out to the side. And then everything is about the passage here. My hand to the inside of the knee. As Mateus goes to hold me off, I just push the knee to the floor on the other side. He's got to start framing now. And then from this situation, we're in the perfect position, post on the floor, bring our body around the corner, and bring our head down to the hip, and end up pinning the hips. Then from the hips, we work our way up to the head and go. This can be a very, very useful way of quickly and easily passing an opponent's legs. So we go straight through, and then from here, I just divert the legs out to the side. He's got to recover. As the legs come in, my primary focus is a hand on the near knee and a hand on the far knee. Go to put me back in the buddy. And you just run the legs down, push the knee to the side, and we end up in good position. Okay? So they're very fast grips that come at very low cost to you. It's very easy to reach out and grab ankles. Okay? With these grips, don't hold on to the grips forever. When you work with pant grips, typically you hold for quite long periods of time. They're robust grips, and you want to physically pin legs, strong body, baby. So we want to physically pin legs down to the floor. As Mateus goes to put me back in guard, we're walking out to the side and physically pushing the legs on through. There's a lot of hard work getting done here. When we work with the no-gi grips, it's typically patty cake, out to the side, pin and drop. Okay? So we come in, quickly divert, put that in. We come straight down and get out patty. Okay? This is just an incredibly effective way to gain an initial advantage on a skilled gripper from bottom position. Get those annoying feet out of the way and get into an advanced position to start your passing. So now Let's start talking about the idea of misdirection. Of all the guard passes available to you in Jiu-Jitsu, the one which relies the most on deceit and deception and misdirection is Toreando passing. It's the one which relies the most upon the idea of going in a given direction and then switching on your opponent as he reacts to you. There's more action-reaction based elements behind Toreando passing than all the other guard passes put together. And you must learn to take advantage of this. So, I'll show this one facing here. Understand that there's several ways to cause angle. You can do it by throwing your opponent's legs to the side, or you can do it by stepping yourself to the side. So I either move him, that's one way to create angle, or I move myself to create angle. And they're both very important, and you must be good at both, okay? So what I'll often do is I'll create a situation where I just grip underneath my training partner's Achilles tendons. And all I'll do is I'll just step. So what do you think Mateus is going to do now? He's going to turn and face me, right? So he turns and faces, okay? So that's the most common reaction. No one likes having a guy step like this. It's bad for him. So that's what they all do. They bring their legs back in, okay? If he doesn't, I'll just pass on that side. So we need to practice the skill of cross step. Cross step, we go side step, crescent step. Side step, crescent step. Side step, crescent step. This step takes me up to the hip line, okay? Then from here we take a second step, and now we've got angle on our opponent, we're ready to go. So we first go in, I come in and I take that step. He comes back and I go to the other side, okay? So we practice the skill of a step. He goes to recover, I step back square, and I step to the other side. You can probably guess where we go from here. As Mateus goes to recover, it's all about pushing that knee down to the mat. As he goes to frame, it's all about killing the hips. He goes to push me off, we make the knees point away, and as you probably guessed, we climb up to the head, and we finish on the head. Okay? So let's have a look at this again. Action, reaction, and diversion. We need a basic skill of stepping around our training partner's legs. The pattern is always the same. Side step, crescent step. Side step, crescent step. Coming back to square. Side step, crescent step. Coming back to square. Side step, crescent step. Coming back to square. Okay? I go in, I go crescent step, he goes to follow. There's my second crescent step. We've got angle. Now, he goes to put me back in guard. It's all about that push, pushing the far knee down. He goes to push me off. We go in, we kill the hips. He goes to put me back in guard. We work our way up. We go through and pin the head. Okay? And in this way, we can be very effective with our Toreando passing. Whether it be with the gi or without, we make use of both gi gripping and no gi gripping. You're going to be a hard person to hold off. And as I said earlier, even if Toreandos aren't your personal thing, and you have beliefs that maybe you're not the fastest guy on the block, you're not the best at action-reaction movements, it will still serve you well to learn Toreandos, even if it's just a method of entering into your other favorite passes. Everything we've done so far with our Toreando passing has presupposed the idea of two hands on our opponent, okay? And the majority of Toreando passes actually work on this principle. We saw that when we work with Toreandos, I want a hand on each leg, and one hand pushes across the hip line, so the far knee goes to the mat, and the second hand pushes along the center line to clear the leg out of our way and create a separation between his elbow and his knee. So as I push one knee to the floor, I push the other knee out of the way, we separate elbow and knee, and we create a space to pass into. And then from here we go into what we call the cranial shift, where I have to shift from my initial passing position down to my opponent's head. That's where most of the problems come when we work with Toreando passing. But everything was done, whether we went with no gi grips or gi grips, with two hands on our opponent's body. Okay, let's understand that it is also quite possible, it's not the standard way of doing things, but it's quite possible to work with one-handed grips. There's always going to be that guy who denies you two hands on his legs. So when his legs are up, for whatever reason, as we go into fight, I may well have fixed up a grip on one side, but when I go to fix up the other, he'll break the grips, and we end up in situations where we've got a one-handed grip. Okay, it's going to happen. if you work with one-handed grips, I'm going to strongly suggest to you that you work with grips on the outside of your opponent's gi pants, close to the knee. When we work with two-handed grips, we can work on the top of the shins, we can work inside the knees. But when we work one-handed grips, we typically work closer to the knee on the outside. Understand that the method of getting this grip is the four-finger thrust, where I take four fingers and thrust into the jacket, and I grip with four fingers like so. Okay? So, as I approach an opponent, and we're working with various kinds of toreandos, etc., there's going to be that time we go through and we get that initial grip on my training partner, his knees are into the chest, etc., and then from here, I take a step towards my training partner, and then everything goes back in this direction. Normally, when we work with two-handed grips, I stay facing my opponent. My head faces him at all times, so that when we come out to the side, I'm facing the man. Okay? But when we work one-handed, I don't have the benefit of the hand pushing the knee to the floor. So there's no reason why my opponent can't start coming over the top with his leg and putting me back in guard. Okay? So what I want to do under these circumstances is always turn in this direction, make a strong body, Mateus. So I turn away from my opponent. That turn loads up my hips and creates a situation where I can get his feet pointing away from me. And as a result, we can throw our training partner's leg on by. Now the beauty of this grip is that you can pin a leg. Okay? Unlike a no-gi grip, you can pin a leg. From this situation, the standard method of passing is to run to the other side of the body. So from here, I just put my hand and foot down, you run around our training partner's body, and then from here, as he tries to put me back in guard, I push the knee to the floor on the far side. So when he goes to put us back in guard, it's a very difficult thing. And then from here, we work our way up to the cranial shift and go in and pin. Okay? So once again, we're here working with our training partner. For whatever way we're working, we go in and we get a grip here on the outside of our training partner's gi pants. Now, as my opponent goes to hook into me, etc., from here, hooking into my biceps, etc., from here, we just turn, and I don't present my body to him. If I present my body to him, he can hook into my body, cause problems for me. So I deny him my body by turning my body away. My foot points in the direction I want to go. And then we just throw everything on by and pin the leg. From the pin, we go around the body. Very often from here, he'll get up to his knees, and you'll be best advised here to go and to get back exposure and work towards your opponent's back. That's fine. You can get hooks in and score with hooks the same way you can score with a guard pass. That's fine. Okay. You don't have as much control over your opponent when you work with one-handed passes. So in a high percentage of cases, you'll work towards your opponent's back rather than towards his chest. That's all perfectly normal and good for you. So, once again, we come in towards our training partner, we're working in pretty close, and we get a good grip here on the outside of the gi pants. As he tries to hook in, everything goes the other way, and we throw the leg on by. First option is to go around the body. If he comes up to his knees, that's a perfectly normal thing, and from here, we continue around behind our opponent and start working on the back exposure. Okay? Now, another option. Rather than pinning the leg and going around the body, a second option is to use your second hand as an action hand, which can go in various places on his body to facilitate passing. So as I go out towards my training partner and we work our way in, we're working at close range, I'm going to throw by, but I'm not going to face the other way. I'm going to keep my action hand high. We're going to throw the hand by and post my second hand anywhere from the hip to the knee. Okay? From this position, when he goes to put us back in guard, you have the hand now on the hip. You're blocking the inside position. It's hard for him. He tries to bring the leg back over, and it's not easy. Then from here, we just sag down to the floor, push the knees away from us, and then as always, come up to finish on the head. Okay? So you use your hand as an action hand to go wherever you feel is appropriate to stop and putting you back in guard. The two most common places are the inside of the knee and the hand on the hip. Okay? So once again, we start off with a training partner here in front of us. As we work in from a fairly close range position, I go through and I throw by and I position my hand here, ready to go wherever is appropriate. As he goes to put us back in guard, post it on the hip, for example. Post it on the knee, for example. If the foot comes all the way in, I might post it on the ankle, for example. Okay? And then from this position, we push this thing here to the side,
and we come in and block the hips like so. If my opponent goes to push me off, we go in and we kill the hips until eventually we can work our way up and pin the head and shoulders. Now, this is one-handed gripping, very effective addition to your Toreando arsenal. Now I'm going to look at a strategy of mixed gripping, where I use a pant grip on one side and a no-gi grip on the other. This is among my most cherished methods of using the Toreando passing style. Normally, if I use gi gripping, we come in and we get two solid grips on our training partner's gi pants. The problem with gi gripping is that my opponent can pommel his foot. And if Mateus pommels the foot to the inside, that's a problem. If Mateus goes the other way over the top, that's potentially a problem too. Okay? The problem is that the gi pants have a lot of play and a lot of slack in them. And Mateus can use foot pommeling to take advantage of that and cause problems. Okay? Now, even when I pass the leg, he's still got the inside position. He can throw me around from here. Okay? One way you can get around this is to use gi pant grips on the side you're passing towards and take advantage of the fact that they give very strong push, and then use no gi grips on the inside of my opponent's knee on the other side. This will make it significantly more difficult for him to pommel his foot to inside position. Okay, so as we come out towards our training partner, I get an initial grip, usually on the top of my training partner's shin, like so, or inside my training partner's knee, like so. Your choice. Second hand is I get an angle on my training partner, just post inside the knee. I'm not grabbing the cloth. I just put my hand inside the knee. Big strong body, Mateus. Now, when Mateus goes to pommel his foot inside, it's much more difficult. When he tries to go over the top, that's also difficult. And then from here we come around the corner, strong body, and I push out here with that knee. Then from here I angle my knee inside in the usual fashion. Okay? Then from here you probably guess what comes next. From here our whole thing is to kill the hips. We come down and pin the hips. As Mateus goes to hold us off, we do whatever it takes, either staying on this side or coming around the other side to come up and pin our training partner's head and shoulders. Okay? So once again, a mixed gripping strategy where I use a gi grip on one side and a no gi grip on the other. As I come out towards my training partner, we come out here and there's our angle. I start pushing across my training partner, we go straight on through. There's the knee position we're looking for, and now we're in perfect position to come down and control the hips. Okay? So this mixed strategy works very well in concert with the one-handed strategy to provide a really good supplementation to your Toreando passing. Now let's continue our analysis of Toreando passing and start bringing in one of the critical elements of all good Toreando passing. This is misdirection. We've already looked at misdirection with no gi grips on our training partner's ankles. Let's start now to look at misdirection when we're utilizing the gi pants to go past our opponent. I cannot emphasize enough to you the idea that misdirection is the key to successfully applying Toreandos in actual competition and sparring. Okay, when you first learn Toreando passing, it all looks pretty much the same. The guy comes in, he lets you get a hold of the gi pants, you step to the side, and you move the legs over to the side and get an angle on the guy and start passing. Okay, but the reality of a competitive match is the guy's legs are going to be very, very strong. He's going to be trying everything he can to maintain his elbow and knee position as a unified elbow and knee to prevent you from passing. And it's going to get pretty damn physical. Okay, this is a situation where you're fighting the strength of your opponent's legs with your hands and your ability to move around his feet. So there's going to be a lot of movement and there's going to be a lot of strength. The legs are the strongest part of his body, and you're going to have to move and divert his legs to the side. And the more you can get side to side on your opponent, the more successful you're going to be. Now, as long as I stay directly in front of my opponent, I'm doomed to failure. Okay, so our whole thing is from in front of our opponent, we go through and we get a grip, and we always want to work out here at an angle. I want my feet some distance from my opponent. If my feet come in too close, he's going to entangle in my legs, and that's going to screw everything up. Okay, so I want to create situations where my feet are some distance from him, and as a result, I'm in a position where I can start to pull my training partner over onto his side. Okay, where I get one of his knees down here towards the floor, and I'm out here to the side. That's always where I want to do my work with the Toreando. Okay, the more he's flat on his back,
right here in front of me, the more problems we run into. So one of the best opening gambits that we can get into once we've established grips is to move to an angle, get our feet back, and establish an angle. Okay? This creates a situation where my opponent's legs are not symmetrical. Okay? Right now, both legs are the same height. What I want to do is have a lower leg and a higher leg. Okay? So I move in on my training partner, I stay outside the toe line, I fight for my grips, and then from here I bring the knee down to the floor. Strong legs and Mateus. Now, from here I push into my training partner and I go in two ways. The first thing I do is I just try to push his knee to the side. Strong legs. I just push his knees to the side and try and fit my knee in front of his knee. Okay? So what do you think Mateus is going to do? He's going to be resisting that with everything he's got. Okay, so what I'm going to do is when I feel that strong resistance, I'm going to push on the far knee and push his knee across down to the floor. Then we're going to start pushing down here and opening the elbow and knee. What do you think Mateus is going to be doing? He's going to be posting on my body, bringing the legs back, and from here we have to come out in the other direction now. Okay, as I come out in the other direction, I run across to the other side. And from here, I push the knee down towards the floor. As Mateus fights to bring the legs back in on me, we're going to have to run to establish distance and then run across to the other side and force that knee down to the mat. There's always going to be this side-to-side element, okay? The two main directions here are going to be me pushing his knee out and away to the side, and the other is going to be me running across the other side of his body. I can't run with my feet too close to him. He's going to hook in. Okay, so when I make my run, my feet have to be back and away from him. I don't want to cross my feet. I want to run across to the other side. Okay, so if Mateus brings the legs in here, look how I pin his knee to the floor, and then I just run to the other side. What have I done? I've pinned his knee to the mat. Okay, what I always want is Mateus's knees pointing away from me. That's when I can pass. If Mateus's knees point at me, that's a real problem. Okay? So one way we can do this is to create a misdirection where I score the pants and I run his knee to the floor. Now I keep his knee pinned to the floor on this side and I just run to the other side. Like so. When Mateus tries to follow me, it's so damn difficult because the knees are pinned to the floor. Then I just put my knee in front of his hip. And from here, we're in the perfect position to transition down to control the man. So one of the big themes that I want to see you guys working with, walk to an angle and pin his knee to the mat. Okay? So my first gambit is grip, run to the angle, and pin the knee to the mat. If Mateus doesn't react, I'll push the knee out to the side. Okay? And from here, I'll get my knee in front and pass. But most of the time, Mateus' legs are very, very strong in this position. So I keep the knee down to the mat, and I just run physically across to the other side. When he tries to follow me, I'm keeping his knee pinned. And as a result, it's very easy to get my knee in front of him, and then from here, we come down and pin our training partner's hips. And then ultimately, work our way up to the head. Okay? Your whole goal is to create situations where first, your opponent's feet point away from you. So when we first tie in, I get the feet pointing away. The second thing is to make his knees point away from you. So I bring a knee to the floor, so his knees are pointing right at me. Then I run to the other side. Now the knees are not pointing at me. And it's easy now to get my knee across in front. Often there's a lot of resistance here. And if Mateus brings his legs back successfully, I may have to repeat this process and get the knees pinned down on the opposite side like so. And this may occur 3-4 times. It may happen that you completely fail and have to break contact and come back in and try all over again. That's perfectly normal. That's all part of the hustle and bustle of toreando passing. Don't think you're a failure because you failed on the first 2 or 3 attempts. It might be the 6th, 7th, 8th where you break through. But what I can't tolerate is feet pointing at me. So our thing, get the feet pointing away. Second thing I can't tolerate is knees pointing at me. So I bring the knees to the floor and I run to the other side. If the knees come back to face me, nothing wrong with putting the knee down on the floor on this side and running out. If he comes back to face me, I'll pin the knee to the floor and run to the other side. If he comes in to face me, I pin a knee to the floor and run to the other side.
until I get to a situation where I can keep the knees pointing away from me. Now Mateus goes to put me back in guard. It's an easy thing for us to go through and pin the hips and then work our way up to the head. This kind of misdirection is the key element behind toreando passing. Please understand that this is one of the more physical of the guard passes. So you're going to have to go in there, establish your grips, and drop a knee down to the mat. Also understand that there's a very high likelihood that this is not going to work on the first attempt, that you'll have to repeatedly go side to side 2, 3, 4, 5 times until your opponent can no longer follow you at the rate at which you're moving. And then ultimately, you go in and control his hips and then finish on the head. Now, let's continue our look at toreando passing and start to bring in a crucial 4-step pattern which you'll be using against tough, resistant opponents, and some considerations with regards to our opponent's defense and the height of a toreando pass relative to our opponent. These become very, very important considerations when it's time to actually pass in a competitive situation against a tough opponent. Okay, a toreando pass, of course, is a standing form of guard pass. But at the end of every guard pass, we have to be chest to chest on a training partner. We have to end up controlling the head and shoulders chest to chest. So a natural question to ask is, okay, if I start standing, how the hell am I going to regulate this transition from a standing position down to a chest to chest position? That gets even more complex when you have an opponent putting frames up, okay? Because as we go into any kind of toreando pass, we get past our opponent's legs, those frames come in thick and fast. And now it's very, very hard for me to get down to control the head. It usually starts to get pretty easy now for our opponent to start bringing the legs back in. And now you're right back in your opponent's guard and having to back out and start all over again. Okay. First, don't be disappointed if you have to start all over again a few times before you pass. Realistically, you're not going to pass first time every time on a skilled opponent with the toreandos. Very often there's going to be quite a bit of side-to-side action, and you might pass on the 4th, 5th, or 6th attempt. So don't get disappointed in yourself if you're not passing first time every time. That's not expected. Now, when we go into pass toreandos, I'm going to encourage you to use a simple 4-step pattern. The first step is a side step that takes me out of alignment with his feet. As we've been talking about, we never want to be directly in front of our training partner's feet. I don't like to see my opponent's, the soles of his feet pointing directly at me. Nothing good ever comes out of that. So we're going to start with a side step. Okay. Now we're going to come up towards our training partner, and we're going to make a step towards our training partner's hip line. So as we make that first side step, I come up to the hip line. Okay. Side step, back step, side step, back step. I need a back step, otherwise my opponent's leg can catch into my legs. Okay. So I need a side step and a back step. That gives me angle. Now from here we start the pushing action on the far leg and the push down the center line on the near leg, and as a result we're able to go into our cross step, which takes us to the hip line. And the 4th and final step is a step to the shoulder line. My foot comes out to the shoulder line and we end up here over our training partner. Don't come down. That gives your opponent access to your shoulders. When he pushes on the shoulders, you'll never come forward down pass. Stay over your opponent, square in this position here, and use your knee to get past his frames. When he frames on my biceps and shoulders now, my knee touches and I score. Okay? If I try to just let go of the legs now and bring my body down, that gives him an avenue to bring the legs back in and recover. Okay? So the 4-step pattern is side step, back step, present step, shoulder step. That puts us in the ideal position. Okay? Because my body is upright, I don't give him clean access to frames. Okay? If I come down, that's when the frames stop me. So even if he does touch here, my knee touches his stomach so that we're scoring. When he goes to push on my body as I'm upright, he has to lose the integrity of elbow and knee position. Okay? As he reaches high for my shoulder, now my knee can go through. Your knee is only so wide. Your chest is much wider. So when there's elbow and knee close together, my chest will never go through that, but my knee can go through quite easily. The knee penetrates the elbow knee frame far easier than your chest does. Okay? So always we want to operate from this position. Every toreando starts here and finishes here. And now all we have to do is penetrate elbow and knee. Because I'm tall in this position, my opponent's elbow separates naturally from his knee and gives my knee the perfect entry. And here I'm scoring. I don't have to fight his frames. I'm scoring. Then I can make a choice based on what I see, whether I will go down to the mat and what orientation I'll go to the mat. I usually recommend an orientation towards the hips. I'll explain why. When I'm in this position, if I orient to the head and he's got strong resistant arms, there's a danger now as he sits up towards me that you fall backwards awkwardly. I'm going to recommend to you that you change your orientation not to the head but to the hips. You'll often hear me coaching students in this position. Tackle the hips, tackle the hips. I like to see my students turn in towards their opponent's hips and go in and tackle the hips rather than the head and shoulders. So you move away from frames rather than into them. So from the knee on belly position, in here, if they decide they're going to go down, they take their hand inside their opponent's hands. So instead of having two hands, his two arms inside mine, I steal inside position and I go in and I put my head down and I tackle the hips. When he goes to put me back in guard now, you're right over the hips. It's a very difficult thing for your opponent to stop. So let's have a look at this again. My recommendation is the 4-step pattern. Once we make contact with our training partner, 1, 2, 3, 4, and get to this position here tall. Don't come down here and give him a purchase onto your shoulders and upper body, where it's very, very hard. Don't lead with your chest, lead with your knee. Now, make a decision, okay? Because you're tall, you can wait for his action. He's got two choices: stay on his back or get to his knees. You don't determine his choice. That's up to him, not you. You have to be successful regardless of what choice he makes. Many of your opponents here will turn to their knees, coming up towards you, okay? There's going to be back exposure here. So our whole thing here is always to get our legs back and immediately be ready to go into our opponent's back, okay? I don't care which way he turns, into you or away from you. There's going to be back exposure. My point is that at least half of the cases of Toreando passing, your opponent will get to his knees, and you must be prepared to take the back to score instead of going chest to chest. Again, you don't determine his actions. That's his choice, not yours. But you have to be ready to score regardless of whether you see a back in front of you or whether you see a chest in front of you. So let's run through this again. The 4-step pattern: side step, back step, crescent step, shoulder step. That puts us in the preferred position, okay, upright over our training partner, so that I don't fight directly into his frames. I don't give him a strong purchase that will hold him off. I stay on the legs until my knee penetrates the small space between his hands and his knees. The knee can penetrate easily, but the chest, very difficult. So we lead with the knee. Once we're in this position, we make a choice. If I see my opponent turning this, for example, away from me, then we'll ride the hips and end up on our training partner's back. If I see my training partner turning into me, again, we're in a good position now to come through and start taking the back. If I see my opponent remaining flat, then my recommendation, go through the middle and tackle the hips, orient to the hips, and go in and tackle the hips. As he goes to put us back in guard now, it's a very difficult thing, okay? So those are my recommendations to get to the position. Use the 4-step pattern. Get to a position here where you're relatively tall. The further down I am, the more purchase I give with his frames. The more I lead with my chest, the harder it is to penetrate through those frames. So my recommendation is stay tall and penetrate with the knee. Don't be in a hurry to go down. Look at your opponent's reaction. If it's a turn, chase the back and use the back as the method of scoring. If your opponent stays down, don't go into the frames and get held off. The legs come back in, and you have to start all over again. Change your orientation to the hips. Use inside position to go through his frames head down, and tackle the hips. That will make it very, very difficult for your opponent to hold you off. So once again, the 4-step pattern. Side step, back step to get away from his legs, step to the hip line, step past the shoulder line. Get to our preferred position. From here, the knee penetrates, and then from this position, I go in and tackle my training partner's hips. Or, if he turns away from us, we take the back and get hooks in and score on the back.